All right, here we go. Happy Sunday to everybody. Well, not so happy because the Knicks lose another devastating game in crunch time. They played three and a quarter good quarters, but once again, Tommy D, man, the Knicks just could not close down the stretch. They have a 5 minute lead with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the wheels fell off totally, man. What you see out there down the stretch from this team?
Yeah, and happy Thanksgiving, obviously, CP and everybody who's tuning in. I hope everybody had a happy and safe one. And it was pretty similar. I was at the game the other night against Philly, and pretty similar result there. Really good first half. Knicks actually played a better third quarter than they did the other night, but very close game coming down the stretch. Tie game with 6 minutes left, and I know we're going to talk about this later on and break it down a little bit further from an X's and O standpoint. But it's the out of timeout stuff that we have talked about, and basically just the execution. And I think when a lot of people reacted initially when I started talking about it, it's sort of am I calling for the coach's head or anything like that? It's not like that. It's more about getting an understanding of sort of what those situations are about. What are they running in those situations? And obviously going up against some pretty good coaches in the NBA who were prepared and ran into probably the best in the business out of timeouts tonight, and Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
And he really had his guys prepared. They executed, and they ended up winning the game going away.
I mean, 5 point lead with 8 minutes left. Celtics then start to bomb away from three. You had Ojale, you had Tatum, and you had Grant Williams knock down some jumpers. They end up tying the game at 95 all, and then after that, it's four straight turnovers by the Knicks. You had a shot clock violation. You had Dotson giving the ball up. You had Randall turning it over. You had DSJ and Kevin Knox on some miscommunication there. It just seems like, once again, good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose, as the old saying goes. And I just think, once again, this was another game that the Knicks just couldn't execute down the stretch, man.
I don't know if they win the game with Marcus Morris, but they certainly lost the game because they didn't have Marcus Morris. Brown and Tatum combined, I think, for 59 or 58 or 59 points. Obviously, knocking down big shots late. Tatum is a closer. We know this. We saw this earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And to that point, coming into the season, Stevens versus Fizdale in that out of timeout stuff. Both coaches obviously are prepared. They know what they're going to do going into games. First two games, the Celtics were 14-0. They were up 14-0 in those situations.
14-0 after the timeout, right? 14-0 after the timeout.
In the first two games, and that obviously expounded today with the numbers coming from today. But yeah, Brad Stevens is a surgeon in those situations. You can almost call him Dr. Stevens. Again, not just against the Knicks, against most teams. He's probably the best at it in the league. But not having Marcus Morris, who obviously played for them last year, certainly hurt them.
Yeah.
And obviously the Celtics come away with their third win of the season against the Knicks, second at home or second on the road at the Garden.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, not having Mook out there from an offensive standpoint didn't necessarily hurt us tonight, but certainly on the defensive end, which I think is an underrated aspect of his game, given that his offensive prowess this season. Because once again, the 3-point defense is what doomed us, man. I mean, they just started bombing away from downtown late in the game, and I thought. Overall, I thought the defense was fairly good, but crunch time once again, we just couldn't get the proper stops.
No, Ntilikina as well, and as Clyde always says, great defense leads to offense, and in those situations coming out of those timeouts, 4 turnovers and 5 possessions generally gets the other team out in transition. Transition leads to either easy baskets or secondary transition, which is ball movement. And that's where you saw either, the easy baskets or the 3-pointers coming off of, that ball movement from the initial transition that started at the defensive end. and that was the difference in the game for sure.
Yeah, that's it, man. And you know, overall, I thought this was one of their best games that they played. Now we've lost a lot of games down in crunch time, but this game, I mean, you needed a good game out of Dennis Smith Jr., especially us being shorthanded in the backcourt. He came out. He played 3 quarters of pretty good ball. He got us deep into the paint. He was hitting his jumpers, 2 for 3 from downtown, six for 11 on the field overall, 7 dimes. I thought this was DSJ's best game since the Dallas game because, I mean, not saying too much because he's been fairly terrible in between, but with Frank out, I thought DSJ stepped up, and I think the domino effect going into the next story of the game was Kevin Knox because I thought DSJ did a good job of getting Knox set up. Kevin Knox coming in with his first start, and you know the story tonight or this week was, you know, Fizdale benching him in the Philly game and how would he respond. What'd you think about Knox tonight?
Yeah, I thought what you saw there was a young player responding to a message that was delivered by his coach, and I think that gets lost in all the noise a lot of times, and I think Coach Fizdale said this himself. You know, people, and I agree with this. People think that development is just all about playing, and it's not. It's definitely not just all about playing. It's about sometimes you have to sit and take a look and sit with an assistant coach and go through, hey, this is where you need to be. And, in certain situations, this is where, your help defense needs to be. Knox he's been exposed in 2-man game. Anytime there's been side pick and roll, or he's the one who's got to guard the guard and pick and roll, he has a hard time handling that. And that's been a weakness that gets exposed. And it's a copycat league. We all know that. So his defense has been a problem. I thought his defense was really good tonight. And on the offensive side, at least in the first half, on the offensive side, what you saw was him making shots to get his confidence going, but also cutting off the ball. When he moves off the ball instead of standing around, when he moves off the ball, somebody goes to try to make a shot and he goes and tries to attack it on the offensive glass, his energy levels rise.
Right.
And that's, as a coach, when you notice a guy is standing around, Dennis Smith Jr. did that in the second half tonight. I noticed first half he had a lot of energy. Then you have to wonder what's going on with the energy. And from a coaching standpoint, I think they did a great job in getting a message sent to him the other night against Philly, and then having him come out and playing a pretty productive game overall, especially in the first half. That was good. A good sign for him, and he took a step forward.
Definitely a good sign because you mentioned energy, and that was another topic that they brought up on the broadcast, and a topic for Knox since we drafted him. It's been about the motor and how to keep him involved and how to get his energy up. And the Knicks coaching staff went on record as saying they want to get him more aggressive and have him attacking more. As you said, his energy was a lot better, especially on the cuts. Like I said, I liked how DSJ got him involved. Again, having that dribble penetration just makes things so much easier, especially when you're spacing the floor a lot better. And again, the help defense from Knox. You saw him with a couple blocks out there tonight. So he was definitely aggressive. RJ, I thought, set a good tone for this game as well. I thought RJ did a good job on both ends, really staying aggressive and attacking. What you think about RJ tonight?
I thought I thought it was his best game the other night against Philadelphia in the Garden. Down the stretch, what I really wanted to see from him was sort of this takeover ability, and hopefully he could carry them to the win. And I'm going to go on record on this, and I'm going to stick to this as long as he's in the league, or both are in the league. I'm taking R.J. Barrett over Ben Simmons any day of the week, and twice on Sunday. Today being Sunday, he's a better overall player. What he showed down the stretch the other night, even though they didn't win, was just really fantastic stuff. He brought the ball on the baseline like Steve Nash did, his godfather. They call that the Nash dribble, and made a couple plays the other night that at 19 years old you just sort of scratch your head and say, this kid's going to be really, really good. He's a foundational piece. We've talked about this. We know this. Tonight, off to a great start. I think just struggled going against Tatum and Brown and their veteran abilities. Tatum coming from behind once with the block, I think early in the game, and then Stevens sort of game planning around him, which is such a compliment to a young player. So he's going to continue to learn from that for sure. But I thought he did have a really good game, coming off probably his best game as a pro the other night.
Yeah, and you mentioned those baseline dribbles, man. He's been really, really good at that.
I
Like
love
every
that.
time I see him doing that, I'm like, I cringe, like it's a turnover waiting to happen. But he makes something out of it, and ends up usually getting assists or hockey assists, along the way. So I thought RJ was definitely solid tonight. Dotson, I thought, gave us some good minutes in the first half on both ends as well. You know, he was typical Dotson, just getting after it on the defensive end, knocked down a couple threes here and there. I thought Dotson set a good tone for us as well.
Well, you're talking to the captain of the Portsmouth Invitational ship in terms of really just enjoying. I've been there a bunch. I've helped there a little bit, just in doing some scouting. But what I love about that tournament is that it's a lot of 4-year guys, a lot of older 22 and 23 year olds who have graduated. But Dotson a couple years ago was the MVP down there out of University of Houston. The Knicks selected him. He's been, to me, a really good two-way player. Obviously, coming off the shoulder surgery, hasn't been completely healthy coming into the year. Coming into form here, played some really good minutes the other night. He's active. His energy level is always very strong. He's a total pro. He's going to guard the one. He's going to guard the two. He'll get loose balls and hasn't really shot it well yet. As we've seen him shoot it a lot better. But when he starts to do that, then I think you're going to see him and his confidence rise overall. And certainly, I think they have it as sort of a Dotson Trier thing, and Dotson's in the lead for now. Anyway, getting the minutes, and he's rewarding them with his effort for sure.
Yeah, he played well with his minutes. It's just unfortunate, man. It's just unfortunate that these guys can't yet really just come together down in crunch time. I mean, what would you attribute that to? Do you think it's the point guard, just not getting us where we need to be in crunch time, because obviously it ends up back in Julius's hands trying to force a play here and there. What do you think it is?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First and foremost, I think it's combinations. Okay, it's who's on the floor with who and why. Smith on the floor tonight with Knox. They weren't on the floor together the other night. So in those situations, you're playing against a completely different team. Yes, you're playing at home, but you're just not used to the experience. Maybe everybody always talks about next man up, but that always isn't something that can happen if guys just aren't maybe mentally prepared and not understanding the opponent. Who the Celtics are, you feel like, but I just feel with where Randall is now and what they're trying to accomplish, it's very similar to football. And I think I heard Wally say this in the post game, not having a quarterback who can run sort of the 2-minute drill. When you have turnovers out of timeout situations, then you've got to really make it simple. It's like if your young quarterback throws an interception, next time you get the ball, you're probably going to be running a lot of, run plays and, screen passes and just really basic stuff so you don't turn the ball over again. So what they did with Randall is sort of, just sort of this flex cut and then have him post up on the right block and see if he could go to work in isolation, draw some double teams. So that's really, it's not an imaginative offense, but it's not because they don't know to create that offense. It's more to protect the basketball after they'd already turned it over a lot. So it comes down to execution. It comes down to pairings, matchups, who's on the floor. And they've just ended up on the wrong side of those really for the better part of the season.
Execution, man, as you said. I mean, down that stretch, once again, we're tied up and 4 straight turnovers. Again, Dotson just basically handing the ball off to Jaylen Brown. You had the Julius, the shot clock violation, shooting a 3 ball. Just not smart basketball, man. Just not smart basketball.
So let's talk about those two. The high entry post pass is a hard pass, difficult. And especially if, the guy who you're passing it to, who is basically essentially posting up at the elbow or the high post or the 3-point line, wherever he ends up, it really has to seal off the defender who, can be very aggressive in that situation. If it's a Randall who's not the fastest guy, and that's not going to be a dunk if he goes for a steal and doesn't get it, right? So I wouldn't necessarily put Dotson in the position to make that pass. I think it's a tough situation. I'm not going to say I wouldn't know how to do it. What do I know? But,
Yeah.
Dotson in that situation, not comfortable. So there's the turnover there. And then the other one is on Randall in my mind because he gets a good pass from Smith Jr. and waits. And then the double comes at him and he's lefty and he throws a really weak right-handed pass that gets deflected. They get possession back, but now you're deep in the clock. You're 40 feet from the basket, and then you got to force a three. So if you make a harder pass there or a better pass there, that possession may turn out differently. So that was the one where I'm like, that's on Randall to not, make such a weak pass there to create this up against the shot clock that he's got to force a three. To me, that's when the game was over. And, if you're Randall and you want to be a leader and you want to be an all-star and you want to be respected as this, great player in the league, can't make those plays.
Can't make those plays. Absolutely, man. Well said. Salute to everybody in the chat once again on this Sunday night. Another disappointing loss. I was proud of the effort through the first three and a quarter, man, but it just became same old Knicks down the stretch, man. And once again, they find a way to lose this one. I want to salute LFK checking in from Germany. Salute to LFK. Tommy Gibbs in here. Ernesto. How you feeling? Nick Flair, what's going on? Shout out to Jerry Billups, Arthur Newell. This is post-game live, CP from KnicksFanTV. No Jay Ellis tonight, but we got Tommy D joining us tonight. And after we take calls, we're going to take a look at some more film on the Knicks after timeout execution or lack thereof. Is it the strategy? Is it the execution by the players? Is it the play itself? We're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into that, and Tommy will orchestrate that. So hit that thumbs up button for you boys. Make sure if you guys are new, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Share these videos as well. And let's see who's first up. First up, we're going to go to Will from LI. Wants to talk about the game overall. Will, how you feeling, man? Yo.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, yo. All right, my bad. I was switching up my thing. Yo, what's up, CP? What's up, Tommy? How y'all doing?
What's up, man? You on speakerphone, man? You got to talk a little bit louder, bro.
No, I got my AirPods and shit, but yeah, I think, my bad. Hold on, let me try to fix this up.
Okay, go ahead, man.
There you go. All right. Yeah, all right, man. It was a valiant effort. I liked it. I like what I saw. I like to see the team fighting and everything like that, but these losses are really starting to hit, man. I don't know. I mean, on the bright side, Knox came out of the doldrums, right? DSJ played well. And Randall, over the last couple of games, he's been pretty good in terms of not forcing it and, being, just a solid player. And I think that's going to help us in the future. But these losses, I think they're starting to get to these players' head mentally. And they just know, like, once the stretch comes down and they aren't, they're close, they can't finish it. And they know it's because, we don't have that finisher. We just don't have it. Nobody's stepping up to be that finisher. Everybody's like, messing up. I think it starts with the guard play. But, I can't knock on DSJ, even though he did do good. He did cause some turnovers, but overall he did a pretty good job, and it was nice to see. But I don't know, man. We gotta get Morris out of here. We didn't have him, but just to see Knox play a little bit better, we need more of that. And for the most part, we just need the season to hurry up and finish up because this is painful. Like, my girl's over here watching the game, and she doesn't know anything about basketball, yet she's over here talking about it. This is bad. This is
I got a question. I got a question.
Tommy, got it, man.
Why does Morris have to go?
Go ahead.
Why does Morris have to go?
Because Knox, and as much as I love Morris, that's Knox's position.
Yeah.
I feel like Knox is a cleaner between 3 and 4, and between Morris and Randall. We all know Randall's not going to go.
To me personally, Tommy, I think they should. If they're not going anywhere, I think they should look to trade him and see if they want to bring him back next season. See what's up. I mean, I would go to him and say, hey, go play for a contender, and see if they can get back into the first round. That's how I would take things with Morris. I think he's having a career year offensively. I would definitely entertain. If you can get into the first round, I would definitely trade him. Definitely.
Oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm sure that's
just for
I'm sure.
development. I just don't see it.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Well, my thing is, you don't have to make a contract decision on Knox, right? So he can develop however he's going to develop this year, right? He can play some minutes. He can spend extra time in practice. He can spend extra time in the locker room. If he's got to store in the film room, if he's got to go to Westchester, not saying he's going to go, but you know that you don't have to make a roster decision or a financial commitment decision on him, which is why the other veterans are there. So I agree that if there's a really good trade opportunity, then fine. But just to get rid of a guy, I think that was the question. You don't want to just get rid of a guy who plays. Morris is leading the league. It's probably not going to last, but he's leading the league in three-point shooting. Yeah. He's three-point percentage. He's as tough as nails. He really is in a lot of ways. He epitomizes what a Knick is and should be. So that's where it's like the dismissiveness. I see it a lot on Twitter. It's like, okay, if you're going to lose, lose with Knox. And it's like, well, no. You could lose with Morris and keep Morris moving forward, and then maybe there's an opportunity to move a Randall or to move a Portis down the line.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just get rid of a guy just because you want to play a younger guy. That doesn't I don't think that's really sound strategy.
I mean, to me, that guy is Portis. To me, now he played a little bit better tonight, but I think there has to come a point where Knox gets those minutes over Portis. I would not prioritize him over Kevin Knox's playing time for sure. On the flip side, I do agree. Knox wants to. They want him to earn it, and Berman came out with an article today or yesterday saying that some of the veterans last year didn't like how Fizz was handling, Knox in terms of holding him accountable. Maybe does that have something to do with how they're handling it this year? I don't know. Take it for what it's worth, but like I said, I think Portis is the guy I would look at for Knox to get those minutes at the floor.
I just find it interesting, just to finish on that thought, like Morris's level never changes. If you've watched him throughout the course of his career, his level every night is high. Like, it may not be in terms of like skill points, production, but his energy level, his professionalism, his fight, the dog in him, it's there every single night. And you don't see that from a lot of guys. And you want that in your organization, and as long as you can have it, I feel, to your point, CP, unless they can make a deal that makes a lot of sense for the future. If it blows you away, then you have to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate the call, Will. Let's go to another Will. Let's go to the Bronx. Will from the Bronx is calling in. How you feeling, man?
Yo, what up, CP?
What's up, man? How you feeling, bro?
Oh, wait, let me say what's up to my guy Tommy, too, so he don't get salty.
What up?
No salts here, man. Not from the BX at all.
Yo, so let's talk. I'm going to talk about the pros first. Knox woke up a little bit. Julius Randle looked a little more decisive, although he took some questionable threes. Yeah, that's it. Other than that, man, this is just really disappointing. At first, I didn't want to be like, oh, let's get Fizz out of here, but we need to get him out of here because the way we just forget how to play basketball at the end of the game is ridiculous. It's like before we were waiting, for the Knicks' little fake comebacks. Now every game I'm just waiting for us to lose that lead. I'm waiting, and they wait. Now each game it's like they wait till later in the game. It's like, and then it's like they completely forget how to play ball. It's like, it reminds me of like in Space Jam when Patrick Ewing and Chuck and all them lost their powers and lost their skills and stuff.
Nah, it's nowhere near Space Jam, man, because even in a movie, these guys are nowhere as talented.
This is like, yo, like I don't understand, like, and I blame Fizz because, you as a coach, you have to be the galvanizer, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta let these players know, hey, don't give up. And everybody wants to talk about, oh, we don't have a closer. But to me, it's about the other end on the floor. It's like we start playing horrible defense after playing great defense all game. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate the call, man. I mean, listen.
Yeah.
Definitely no Space Jam, but I'm sure. Like I said, when we go through some of the film that Tommy broke down, yeah, I think we're gonna see some of it is on phase, but players got to execute and give credit to the Celtics when they turned the defense up, just like when Philly did. We had a 17-point lead. As soon as Philly turned that defense up in the third quarter, all bets are off because that's when things starting to tighten up with the Knicks. We go away from what got us the lead and what got us going. We get into more ISO ball. We start turning the ball over. And again, that's on the players, some of the younger players too, that have to get it together and just execute down the stretch.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, there's no website for this. Basketball Reference doesn't have it. I'm thinking about maybe doing it. I don't want to give away an idea, but maybe I just did. I mean, if you were to track everyone, I'm sure maybe Synergy does it. I'm sure people in the league do it. I'm sure the Celtics do it. Stevens has to be the best out of timeout coach in the league by a lot. And if he's not, it's him, Pop, a couple other guys over the course of a few years, not just this year. So with that being said, when you talk about needing to have a closer, what I think fans are most disappointed in is not losing to the elite teams down the stretch. Not that Boston necessarily is elite, but they've been up there last couple of years. Maybe this year, Kemba's obviously playing really well, could take them to the next level. But it's more of, what about the middle of the road and the lower echelon teams that don't have elite coaches? Why aren't they finishing out those games that they could win? The Hornets game is a great example. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I think from a frustration perspective, everybody shares that within not only the organization, but the coaching staff, but the players and the fans as well. And that's that's something that definitely is part of the work that's trying to be fixed. And just got to take it day by day. I hate to sound hyperbolic, but that's the focus, I think, going forward if you're the coaches and the players.
I hear that, man. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit that thumbs up for you boys. I want to salute Jack Peters, Delano Steele. What's going on, Delano? Matthew Core checking in from Wiltshire, England. What's going on, Matthew? Definitely want to shout out KR, Andrew Dell, Darryl Walsh checking in from Ireland, Green Lantern, Ishmael Rivas. What's going on, everybody? Salute to everybody on Team #New. Definitely want to shout out Michael Parker. Sends us a super chat. He says, salute to the Knicks family. He says, once Fizz gets fired, I don't see him getting another head coaching job, maybe assistant coach. I don't know.
I got a good one on that one, and I want to hear your thoughts on this one because I know you're a football guy. Mm-hmm. And I think you're a Giants guy.
Giants, diehard Giants fan.
I can't think of a time in New York sports, at least in recent memory, where two coaches are like pretty similar in terms of track record and sort of being on thin ice at the same time with the possibility of maybe not getting another opportunity to be head coaches. And Shermer is one, and I think Coach Fizdale is not that, maybe not there yet, and hopefully won't get there. Neither of them will get there because you never want to see people lose their jobs, especially I get sentimental during the holidays. But can you think of a time, like, do you not see the parallels that I may be seeing?
For sure. I mean, take it to the Mets with Callaway. They just got rid of Callaway. So
that was his first job, though. That was his first job.
Yeah. It's not a good sign right now. Not a good sign for New York sports.
Not at all.
I'm not on the Fire Fizz bandwagon, man. I tell these guys all the time, I'm just not with it. I don't see the point in doing a midseason firing. Again, I'd like to see what he does with the talent upgrade, but if you're asking me if I trust him with the development of the youngsters right now, I'm going to lead towards no. But I would like to see if it can improve. I would like to see if it can improve. But right now, I'm not sure I trust him from a development standpoint. Maybe if the talent had a serious upgrade during free agency as we had hoped, maybe he would have been a better fit for a more established win-now team. But for the young guys, I'm just not so sure.
The guy's a basketball guy. He's a basketball lifer. He's going to be great whatever he does. If it's a coordinator's position, maybe he gets another opportunity. It's a very difficult situation, from a developmental standpoint, coming off of a situation in Memphis when he had a lot of veterans, and now he's got to sort of and got them to the playoffs, which proved a lot about him as a basketball coach and a basketball mind. I think where we are now in the league is, at a time where I don't know if players necessarily care, what he did with LeBron James in 2012, 2013, and Dwayne Wade 2012, 2013. Certain guys were how old at that time? 13, 12. For me, from a developmental standpoint, it's important to, as we talked about before, make sure that Knox is on the right track. Get Knox. Look where Jason Tatum is at, right? I'm not saying Knox is going to ever be as good as Jason Tatum, but Jason Tatum in 3-4 years is now one of the league's, on the verge of being an elite player, an all NBA player. And Jaylen Brown, who coming out, I wasn't a big fan of. I didn't think he was going to really translate. He was a wing who couldn't really shoot, didn't have great form, not a lot of flexibility, but all of a sudden has come into a situation, come into his own, and now is a legitimate scorer in the NBA. And there's not a all-star, but maybe he's right at that caliber if things break right for him. But he's a really good third or fourth player on a very, very good team. And that's development. That's getting the draft picks to take that next step. And that's what needs to happen with Knox. Obviously, it needs to happen with RJ and, their picks moving forward. Hopefully you can elevate a guy like Dotson, and Mitch Robinson certainly is a player on the rise, but in a short time to get those players there, that's gonna be on the coach, and that's really what the job is at this point.
Like when I look at Fizdale, let's take a look at Mitch. You just mentioned Mitch. How do we get Mitch to be more disciplined out there defensively? It just seems like night in and night out, he's just picking up ticky-tack fouls. And just really just costing himself an opportunity to really make his impact on the game.
I don't have the answer for that. The only thing that I could even begin to guess, I was watching a game the other night at the Garden, and Philly brought in Norvell Pell, who's their backup center. He's kind of been in and out of the league, just getting into the league, was a G League guy, and there's a baseline out of bounds play, and right away they just set a back screen for him. They throw the ball up to the rim. I think he dunked it. He may have missed it, but I think he either got fouled or whatever. But they ran a play for him, and all of a sudden, bench goes nuts, and the energy goes up. And next thing, the first play of the game, Pell got dunked on by Randall, the first play that he was in. But he was very active the rest of the game and engaged and. Even blocked Robinson at one point at the rim.
Yeah, after Randall bodied him in chalk, he came back ferocious, man. He was not taking anything in the paint.
And I think that baseline out of bounds play for him really did a lot for his confidence, because nobody could block it, nobody could guard it, and he was able to go up and get it. And it was an easy play for him because it's like Robinson too. Like if they just had a set play for him where they knew that he was going to catch a dunk, not just in pick and roll, not in 5-on-5, but maybe like a baseline out of bounds thing where it's like, all right, this is, call it whatever it is. I know it's probably an elementary thought for the coaches in the NBA. But that sort of stuff would trigger him to be, not that he's not engaged defensively, but just to be smarter. Don't go for the pump fake. Get the stop. Listen to what everybody's telling you, when the game is going crazy and it's moving really fast. Don't go for the hesitation. Don't go for the head fake, and just stay on your feet and play good defense. I think those things go a long way. And, again, that's part of development too.
All part of it, man. Back to the phone. Sergio joins us. Sergio from Jersey. How you feeling, man?
Yo, what's up, CP? What's up, Tommy?
How you
Happy
feeling?
belated holidays, brother.
You too, man.
You too, man.
Yo, I'm not going to defend my boy today. Today I want to talk about Dennis Smith Jr., right? I think I've looked at him enough to think that he's not the answer. I mean, this team seems to be tailor-made for a pass-first point guard. I think a player like Rondo would do wonders for our team, almost what Rubio did for the Suns. And I think there are some players out there who kind of could help us, but we could also get rid of them to a degree. And this might sound crazy, but Lonzo Ball is falling out of favor. He's a pass-first point guard. I know he gets hurt, but I think that he's a player that can help us. I think we need to. It's about time. I think we need to give up on Dennis Smith Jr. I've seen enough personally, and I really think we need to get our hands on Robert Covington. You know what I'm saying? Lonzo Ball and Robert Covington. Tommy, what do you think about that?
You're talking to someone who wrote scouting reports for Covington when he was in the G League. Has a very big piece, part of my heart, because he's a tremendous story. He's a tremendous kid, and very happy for the success that he had and has had. And I feel like he's a player that Philly probably regrets giving up. They were playing, really well. He was part of the Butler trade, I believe.
Yeah.
And just I think a guy that you always, James Ennis is another one of those guys. He was on Philly. We watched him the other night. Those guys, you want those type of guys in your organization without question. I love the call out on Rubio in Phoenix. They dropped a couple, but he's really helping Booker develop to the next level in the way that he did with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Lonzo's an interesting one. I think it's on the right track. Rondo, I don't think Rondo fits this group.
No.
But I think Lonzo's an interesting one because it comes down to a decision, right? And what you've seen from this front office, which is really smart in my opinion, is that they're willing to take chances on guys who they don't have to commit to, young guys that they don't have to commit to. Even if it doesn't work out with Dennis Smith Jr., sure, everybody's going to say, oh, he was part of the Porzingis trade, but he wasn't the reason why they traded Porzingis. They didn't trade Porzingis to get Dennis Smith Jr. He was part of the deal.
Right.
If he doesn't stay here and they bring somebody in from the draft, or if they bring in another player that they take another chance on, it's a wash either way, in my opinion. And I think you may be on the right track with Ball. I think Ball is definitely a pass first guy, still very, very young, good defender. I just don't know if you want to be in the LeVar Ball business.
Yeah, that's my thing, man. I don't know, man. That type of volatility, I just don't know. Even his little brother, man. I mean, listen, LaMelo's smoking it down there in the NBL, back-to-back triple-doubles. He and R.J. Hampton went at it the other night. Obviously, he's got the size that I like at the guard spot. No offense to Lonzo, but I'd rather just go in the draft. I'd rather just start fresh. Go in the draft. If we were going to get a point guard, this would be the draft to go get one. The draft is certainly very deep. Even though I would just go best player available, man. Like, how could you pass up on a guy like Anthony Edwards? There's no way. I would draft Anthony Edwards in a heartbeat and slide RJ to the 3.
I've been trying to stay away from talking about this upcoming draft.
Yeah,
it's still
early,
very
early.
When the time comes, then I'd like to talk a little bit more about the point guards. I got to see a little bit more LaMelo. I've been watching Cole Anthony around here since he was about 14, and he's exceptional. Want to see a little bit more, obviously, in North Carolina, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. But I think overall, to the Dennis Smith Jr. point, let's see how this continues to play out. He saw some bursts today. He needs to get himself in better shape. Just coming back, he hasn't played. His back's been an issue. So let's see what the future holds here.
I'm with it too, man. I'm definitely with it too. Like I said, I definitely don't want to see them just completely give up on the kid. But he's been puzzling. Let's just be honest. We definitely were looking forward to seeing what type of season he would come with based on the trade last year. And it's been a more down than up so far. Again, tonight he looked pretty good. I don't know if that was an extension of minutes or what. It's left to be seen. Let's see what happens tomorrow. We don't know what Frank's status is going to be, so let's see how DSJ comes out tomorrow, going against a dog like Bledsoe and those guys, man.
And I know everybody roots for every player for the most part, and for me, Frank may have played his best game as a pro against Philly too the other night, and maybe not his best game, maybe his best overall game. He was very active. Really good passing, rebounding, etc. And then to have him get hurt, hopefully that's not serious. It's just that's how crazy the league is. He starts the game, he misses the layup, comes back down, drills the three, and is playing. You could see he's playing with a lot of swagger, and that's what they want him to play with, and he's starting to respond. And then it's the unfortunate injury happened, so we'll have to see what happens there. But I think we could agree he's taken his game to a different level in a place or at a time where Smith hasn't yet. So maybe now it's Dennis's turn to see if he can take a step forward.
Elevate. Agreed.
I think we can agree. We've seen a different Frank this year at times, and that's a positive.
True story, man. What do you guys in the chat think about DSJ, man? Leave us a comment in the chat or leave us a comment on this video if you're watching later on. Let us know your thoughts about DSJ, about Frank, just about the point guard situation overall. Definitely want to shout out J Money. He's team #new. Salute to J Money, Mr. Knicks 101. What's going on? Apple fanboy, how's it going? Want to shout out Ryan Hay checking in from Australia. Ryan Hay, what's going on? CP the artist in here as well. Okay, back to the phones. Let's go to Carl from Detroit. Carl, what's going on, man? How you feeling, bro?
Hey, man, I'm feeling all right, man. How y'all boys doing?
Pretty good, man.
What's up, Carl? Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, excellent. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, man. Happy holidays to you and your family, both of you, man. Hey, man, what I want to talk about is that there's really three things that's kind of really bothering me about the Knicks right now. Number one, it just seems like a reoccurring theme with this guy Fizz at the end. He seems to always botch our lineups. He always blows them. Like, to me, he left RJ out too long. There's no way that Ellington should have been in that long. I mean, literally, Brad Stevens put in his best players. They went on a run, and then all of a sudden we put in our best players. It's like we're playing catch-up. You know what I'm saying? And the other thing that's really killing me right now is talented as he is. I think Julius Randle's our most talented player. But I think he disrupts our chemistry the most out of all of our players. As great as he is, sometimes he looks fantastic. Sometimes he looks like that he is the single reason why we have the record that we have this season.
No, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, listen, with Julius being the number one option, that's just how it's going to look. Sometimes he's going to make the right play, and sometimes it's going to look like he's just doing way too much. I still think he still needs to get better in terms of recognizing the double teams and the triple teams, passing out of it, getting guys easier looks. He certainly looked off a couple guys sometimes, so you definitely want to see that out of Julius. I definitely agree with you there.
Man, doesn't that go back to your man Fizz, though? Doesn't Fizz have to do a better job of rolling these dudes in?
Yeah, but I just think
this is why I think we got to get rid of Fizz, man. I think he's too nice of a guy. He's cool. He's a great communicator. All that's good and everything, but just because he's a cool guy doesn't mean he's the right guy. Sometimes the guy that you're cool, that you can hang out and have a good time with, isn't the guy that's going to get the best out of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, it's all fair points. I think in terms of the rotation, I just think you just don't have the depth right now, man. Like, you can't even afford to give these guys a breather because certain guys come out, like RJ comes out, and the wheels just fall off, man. Or sometimes Frank comes out and the wheels just fall off. I just think sometimes we just don't have the proper depth. And Fizz has had a tough job, especially in the 2 Philly games, in terms of just getting a feel for when to get guys back into the game. Tommy, what's your thoughts on that?
So when I watched the game the other night, it's interesting you said that, not only at the guard position, but also at the big position. So Brett Brown did a really good job of taking Embiid out in the first quarter very early and then forcing Fizz to sort of bring Robinson into the game, and Robinson got foul trouble sort of quickly. But then Brown brought Embiid back before the end of the first quarter, so he was able to keep that game from being a 15-point game, 18-point. Well, the Knicks, their free throws helped that happen as well. But those little chess moves within the game to say, all right, I'm going to take Embiid out at 6, I'm going to bring him back in at 2 in the first quarter, 2 minutes, and then to close the quarter, and instead of it being a 15-point game, it's a 9 or 10 or 11-point game, whatever it was, instead of it, being a complete blowout. I thought was interesting, and he kept doing it, and they never countered that. And that sort of, I think, put Robinson in a little bit of a tailspin where he didn't have all of his energy at the end of the game when he probably needed it. Not that you want to match up Robinson and Embiid together against each other, but let's face it, he's probably as good of a matchup as they have against Embiid, who's a very brutal matchup as well. But as much as anybody anyway. But I think those little things, if you watch it in that way, can get you a little frustrated about some decisions. Offensively, I just think he wants guys to play with freedom and play with flow, similarly to how D'Antoni coaches, not necessarily calling plays and just letting continuity and the ball movement make things happen. And I think Randall is a foil to that philosophy. If that's I think that's the fairest way of saying it.
Well said, man. All right, Carl. Appreciate the call, man. Let's go to Dan from Long Island. Dan, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for taking the call.
Yep.
A couple of things real quick. I feel like I call every time I talk to you, I'm talking about the point guard play. So I got to be honest. I thought DSJ played well tonight. I mean, listen, they weren't empty stats. I think 2 turnovers tonight, right? 7 assists. I can live with that 17 points. He didn't mark in the fourth quarter. And that's, I know everybody's going to say he's out of shape. I don't know how long it takes you to get back in shape. I mean, I know he had his family issues, his back, whatever. Listen, he's 21 years old. He had all summer. He's trying to rebuild himself.
That's what I'm saying.
Resurrect a career which was having a tough time. So I don't know. The excuses are tough. And, this is my knock on Fisbell. And this is what I really, and I know I'm a broken record, man, but it drives me insane. There is no structure defensively. I agree, guys, that plays got to make plays, all right? But in the fourth quarter, it's about setup. That's about practice. That's about having an identity. And it's about being set up to defend. And I just don't think that we're set up to defend. And again, let's be honest, if he was winning, it wouldn't bother me. I can't watch his presses after the game. He sits there, that look on his face, hanged up like it's not like, he's responsible for part of this, isn't he? And I know there's apologists who want to say, it's not his fault. He didn't construct a roster. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. Listen, I thought part of the reason we brought him in, maybe I'm wrong, was his Miami pedigree. And that's that pedigree where they take people you never heard of and they make them good NBA players.
Sure, it's true.
And I thought that was part of it. And here we are now. Knox has gone backwards. He looked better in summer league. He brought a jump shot with him to the fall in October.
Yep.
He brought parts of his game look better. Right now, he looks terrible. And here's the last I want to mention. And I saw someone tweeted this before, and I had my son pointed out to me earlier. Again, they're looking at this in 10 game blocks. And again, this isn't my thought, but 2-8. Here's another team 10-game block, 2-8, and defense is actually getting worse. And that is something that I don't understand. And my last point, fellas, I'll leave you at this. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm not, when I told you I have mad respect for you, but you talk about Morris and him being a Knick, closer to a Knick player or an old school Knick player. Let's be honest. And again, I'm not, I know you're an expert. You watch all the games. I watch only what I watch on TV. If you're not going to tell me that the 7 boards a game that Morris averages are not the softest 7 boards in the NBA, you got to be kidding me. My man hasn't gotten a big board in a big spot, and to me, that makes him a 3. He ain't a 4. And I know the NBA's changed somewhat, but he's a decent man-on-man defender. He doesn't rebound when you need him to. And, yes, he's having a nice season offensively. I get that. But, I think we can move. If we could get something for him, let's move on because, to me, he's a journeyman. Knox is a lottery pick. He's here for a reason. I need to see him play. And I know you said before, why not play both? If Fizdale could work that out, great, but he doesn't seem to be doing it now. Gentlemen, thank you for taking my call.
Appreciate it, Dan. Good call, man.
Great
good call.
Point, Dan.
Tommy, which point you want to take first? The Morris point or the Fizdale point?
Yeah, I think rebounds, from you have to look at it more closely from a tough rebound perspective, clutch rebounding. I just see him as a player that is boxing out a guy, making a play for another guy. You want to call him hockey assist rebounds, whatever you want to call it. Like his positioning is always really good. He can make shots off the catch. He's a screener. He's gonna body guys. I think he's a good overall 2-way player on a really, really good team. I'm not saying he's a guy that is going to be your starting 3 or your starting 4, if you're a 55-win team. Although he was on the Celtics, right? He was a player that would start. He's a rotation piece. He was, I think they miss him, and I think they're going to miss his toughness come playoff time, and that's when we'll really see, the value of him and what he meant to them. What he means to the Knicks now on a 4-16 team. I can see that it's he's not getting all the rebounds in November, and that maybe that's not the type of player that he is. I just like that he every single night, as I said before, since he's been in the league and he's settled down, and he's always played with the edge. He's always played with the energy. You know what you're going to get from him every night. That's a professional. That's a pro. And there's a lot of those guys, and the really good teams have all of those guys, seemingly. But on a young team, you want to teach that to the younger players, and that's why I think I have a big affinity for him.
Yeah.
He's not the greatest player in the world, but I like him. And
I
always
like
have.
him. I like Morris. Trust me, I like him. And if this team was in a different space, I would definitely advocate for keeping him. Because, listen, he's having a career year. His points are up. His rebounds are up. He's averaging 6 boards a year compared to the 4. As you said, what type of rebounds is he getting? When is he getting it in crunch time? All that matters. I haven't really looked at it in that regard. That's something I'll have to take a closer look at. But I think his 3-point shooting numbers are up. I think overall his defense is pretty good. So I like what Morris is giving us, but I agree with Dan that if you can get a good deal for him, I would certainly look to move him.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, this was Mike Vorkanov's tweet. He says the press conference before Scott Perry and Steve Mills was November 10th. They said they wanted to take a look at things in 10-game blocks. First 10 games, Knicks are 2-8, 30th in offensive rating, 21st in defensive rating. The last 10, they're 2-8, 24th in offensive rating, 23 in defensive rating. So I would say a little bit more of the same. Offense, I guess, has ticked up a little bit. But again, I think, you want to look at the signs in the game, right? How are they competing? How are the young guys playing? How's RJ doing? How's Frank? How's DSJ? Mitch? I think we still have to look at it from the development lens more so than the wins and losses. But what's your take on that?
The press, we haven't talked about the press conference, have we? I guess not.
I think, when it first happened, we definitely did.
We did, okay.
Yeah.
Since then, I think what we saw, the first game I went to was the other night, as we said, against Philly, as I said earlier. You would have thought that team was 500, in watching them and the energy within the building. Tonight I think was more. They have this habit on Sundays of sort of not playing their best, not even close to their best, and we've seen them been pretty embarrassing over the last few Sundays at the Garden, which is going to upset a lot of people in the building. We haven't seen that as much. They certainly competed for a long time tonight, so it wasn't an embarrassment. It wasn't the Kings. Right, it was. This was a much
quality team. It's a quality team.
I think they're playing better. Just a couple of things to nitpick on for me. Just a quote the other day from Coach Fizdale saying, when asked about why Alonzo Trier's not playing, he said, I've got 4 or 5. I've got 4 or 5 2 guards. Those sort of things, I don't know, are going to endear himself to maybe a group that he's not, that they're not happy with him, right, at this point. So, overall, they're playing harder. They're a bit more competitive, but the record is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Two clips in a row, a quarter into the season. You're talking about 4-16 overall, 2-8, 2-8. A quarter of the way through, do the simple math. That's 16 wins. Certainly not good enough.
Not at all, man. And then we got Milwaukee Bucks coming in tomorrow. We got the Denver Nuggets on the docket. So schedule just doesn't get any easier. All right, I want to go to another call, and then I want to get to some film breakdown on Fizdale and the after timeout action that the Knicks just can't seem to get right. Andrew from Westchester, you're up next. How you feeling, man?
Hello?
Yep. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Oh, hey. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Really, really love the show.
Thank you.
I'm calling. And there's a number.
Oh, you gotta call back, man. Your connection isn't good. Jay from North Carolina, you up next. How you doing, man? Hello.
I'm good, man. What's happening with y'all fellas, man? It's been a long time since I spoke to y'all, man. Long time.
Been a minute, man. How you doing?
I'm not feeling. I'm good, man. Happy holidays, man.
too,
I'm not
man.
feeling good at all about the season, man. I know a lot of people they're like that too. My thing, Jim Jones had an album called "Wasted Talent," point blank. We on the verge of wasting all our good youth talent. Fizdale was brought in here to recruit, not the coach. He failed on recruiting. He was a big name coming out of Miami. Point blank. If he didn't bring in a recruit, we probably gonna need to get rid of him. But our young crop, we got to develop them, man. We got to develop them. The last time I spoke to you, I said the same thing. The reason why them guys didn't come over here to New York and went to Brooklyn, because them guys was ready. We got to get our crop ready for the 2022 free agency.
So who's your coach?
Right
Who's your
now,
coaching
we are
answer?
not.
Who's your guy?
Who's my coaching answer?
Yeah.
Who I got?
Yep.
I told you before it was Mark Jackson.
Okay.
I told you before it was Mark Jackson. See, you gotta look at the development. When Steph went to Golden State and Mark was there, the first thing he told me, until you learn how to handle this rock, you're gonna just be a jump shooter. He showed that man how the Riverside Church handle that rock. And that's the difference in his game. That's why he's a complete animal. By far injuries. We need somebody to come in there and show these guys their weaknesses on their game. I hear the last guy talking about Kev Knox jump shot. He been had a jump shot. I don't need you to develop the jump shot no more. I need you to be able to go to the rack, do this and that. All that talk about getting rid of Morrison, man, that's our young Charles Oakley. That's our heart and soul, man. This man lead the league in efficiency on three-point shooting. He's our heart and soul on defense. He's not scared to fail. That's the problem. Some of these guys are scared to fail. What I mean is he's not scared to make the big play, even if it doesn't lead to a bucket. We don't have nobody that's not scared to make the wrong play at a crucial time. Randall is in the way. He don't even deserve to have Bernard King jersey on. That's the first mistake. What are you doing? Melo didn't wear that. He didn't wear that. It should have been Morris in free agency got that money that what Randall got, and we should have got Brogdon at the point. I told y'all that 6 months ago. That was the Fed. You should have gave Brogdon that money that you gave to Randall. Imagine Brogdon and RJ in the backcourt together right now.
Hey, Brogdon's playing well,
I
man.
called
Thanks for the call, Jay. Jay called with some passion, man. I love it. I love it, Tommy, man.
Heck yeah.
I love it. I love it. So he says he wanted Mark Jackson, man. What do you think about that one?
I mean, for a lot of people, I think they think it's a no-brainer. For how it ended in Golden State, a lot of people would think maybe probably not a good idea. A lot of stuff that came out reported, and who knows what's true and what's not true, other than what we know to be true. I don't know if Mark would have taken the job. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, he was part of the conversation. But for me, I just feel like, yeah, he's a development guy, but he's also a guy who really wants to win. And, these jobs, the lower 10 jobs that open up in the league are for a lot of first-time guys to prove themselves, and for guys who have already proven themselves to get a second chance. A lot of guys sort of wait, lay back and wait for a team to get a little bit better and say, I can take that 35-win team to a 45-win team, right? I think Mark's more of that guy, but I could be wrong. I think he would love to coach here, I'm sure. Just comes down to, sort of what the next steps are. But I don't think and I know no coach, worth their weight from a character perspective ever wants to talk about a job that is not open, right? So, would he be a fit here? I think from a historical standpoint, just the connection with the Knicks. Now, remember, I think people think back to, when he was a rookie, he also played for the Pacers too, and he also hated the Knicks when he played for the Pacers.
I hated him when he played for the Pacers.
Right, and he left here in that Charles Smith trade when Riley was like, "Listen, you're not a good enough defender," and he'll tell you that. Mark will tell you that. That carried him throughout the course of his career, which ended up being another about 10 years. Then he ended up, I guess the last part of his career here. He's a name that, if something were to happen with the current coach, I'm sure he'd be part of a discussion. I'm not sure that's an internal discussion, but it'll be a public discussion for sure.
Well said, man. So in that regard, salute to everybody in the chat once again. This is Knicks Post Game Live. CP from KnicksFanTV. My man Tommy D checking in, filling in for Jay Ellis tonight. If you're a diehard Knicks fan, make sure you subscribe to the channel. This is the home for you. This is the home where we talk about Knicks news, Knicks rumors, and post game live analysis featuring live callers. As you just heard, a passionate Jay from North Carolina just gave his takes on who he wants in the coaching ring. So speaking of coaching, Tommy, let's get to these after timeout plays, because I think it was real fitting that a lot of the Knicks stumbling and bumbling down the stretch of this game came from after the timeout. Some uncostly turnovers that led to some Celtics baskets. You had drafted up some film in the past games in terms of the execution and lack thereof. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Let me know when you're ready to play it so we can be in queue.
Let's do it. I'm good.
All right, let's do it. Press play.
Cool. So as we talked about during the week, and it was really appreciated, the back and forth. After timeouts is about strategy, communication, and execution from a coaching standpoint. And coming into this game, the Knicks were negative 2.4 in terms of points per game in after timeout situations. Other teams were scoring 105 points to their 59 points, which is a problem. Now, it becomes exacerbated. I didn't do the video, before tonight's game. I did it before, not after. So, everybody remembers the Hornets game where Graham makes the shot at the buzzer with 2 seconds left. And then, when their coach makes a great after timeout play and your coach does not, it certainly makes everybody feel like, we got out coached and it's a coaching thing. I am not sitting here saying it is a coaching thing. I'm saying it's a situational thing. Here's Brett Brown Friday night. This is what really caught my eye when I was at the game. Notice the score, 43-32, calls timeout after a Randall basket and runs a pretty neat little pick and roll there. I killed it while I was watching it, but actually worked, which led to an N1. Notice that's 9 points. That's 3 possessions. We talked about that actually kept them in the game the first half. They ended up winning the game. That was the reason why they won the game, but it kept them in the game. We know about Brad Stevens. We saw it again tonight. Here he is out of timeouts. It doesn't have to be a genius play. He just has to get his guy at the top of the key, or Kemba Walker, making a big shot when they're up 1. That makes it a 2-possession game. When you can do that and then do this when it's a tie game with 4 seconds left and isolate your best player who's a closer and Jason Tatum, give him the confidence in a no-lose situation. If he misses it, you go overtime. If you make it, place goes nuts. But here, the Knicks don't have a timeout, so they don't have an answer for it because they ran out of timeouts and they weren't able to score. Again, 14-0 in the first 2 games, the Celtics overmatched the Knicks in out-of-timeout plays. That's how, after timeout plays, that's how important it is. Now, Fizz can do it as well. It's not like that they struggle. Here he calls timeout against the Nets earlier in the season, and he gets a pretty decent opportunity here for Morris late in the clock. But just notice it's a mid-range shot. It's nothing dynamic. It's not a in-rhythm three-pointer. It's a good play. But what the Nets are able to do and how they free guys up is something like this, which, again, takes a 3-possession game to a 4-possession game. So, again, we talk about strategy, communication, and execution. Other teams are doing it. The Knicks have to do a much better job, and I think everybody would agree with that.
Got to do a much better job, man. Especially when you're looking to get as many possessions as you can, and obviously execute on those. It's just not good. And I wanted to pull up the graphic that you had with the Knicks against all the other teams on the schedule in terms of the out of timeout execution, because it was just dreadful. I mean, the Celtics won alone 14-0 in the first 2 games. Again, it's little things like that. That cost you games.
And I want to be clear on this. This is not necessarily like an indictment on the coach and the job that the coaching staff has done. They're playing against teams where coaching staffs have been together a long time. Yes, there's been some roster turnover. They have go-to guys, which makes the job a lot easier. But when I look at Stevens and his creativity, and even Kenny Atkinson, Brett Brown, guys who are in the division, with the creativity and being able to call those plays and have the players execute, those are daggers. Those are big shots and big moments that, to the point of, okay, this is no longer a 2-possession game. It's a 3-possession game, or it's not a 3-possession game. It's a 4-possession game. That's the in-game stuff that makes it very difficult to get over the hump and win those games.
What did you make of, I forget which game it was after the Charlotte game, but it looks like they actually drew up the same play from that Charlotte had executed on them with Devontae Graham. It may have been the Brooklyn game. They tried to run the same play for Wayne Ellington. What did you think about that?
He likes to run plays for Ellington, which I like, because Ellington's a heck of a shooter, and you're going to get some 3-point looks as long as you execute properly. That Hornets possession at the end of that game, if you look at the picture of Frank defending it, his hand was right almost on the ball. He almost got a piece of it. In fact, afterwards, he said he thought he got a piece of it. That was run so perfectly, perfect cut, perfect bounce pass. Graham, of course, had hit, 8 3-pointers already. I think where maybe the decision needs to improve a little bit is you can't just bring Ellington in off the bench when he hasn't really played a lot of minutes or made any shots. He's not that great of a shooter. He's a great shooter. But if he hits 4 or 5 and then you want to run something for him in a spot when he's in a flow, you're going to have a better chance than just kind of bringing him off the bench and then running something for him when he's cold. Because that's, I think the odds of that going in are a lot smaller.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, you just got to hope, again, when you're talking about improvements, those are certainly some things to pay attention to as this team continues forward, and hoping they can continue to execute, draw up a bit better plays there after the timeouts, because, again, it's crucial. And I think also the communication. I think the communication has been off on these as well, as you noted. Also on the defensive end. A caller a while ago had called in about some of the lack of defense, and I think a lot of it is, again, just not rotating, not communicating, and they've mentioned the trust word. They've brought it up several times. The players just not really trusting each other on the defensive end. That leads to a lack of communication, and it just the plays just break down, and you're getting wide open 3-point looks.
A lot of it too is also experience. If a guy's coming to set a screen, a lot of times young players will move before the screen gets there, and that sort of nullifies the screen. I've seen Knox do that. Knox loves to leave before the screen gets there, so his defender is able to get through the screen instead of having to run into the screen. I think that's where Coach Fizdale relies a lot on Ellington, because he does have that that savviness to be able to free himself, even though he's not the greatest athlete in the world. He's not the fastest guy. But he's able to get a shot off. Again, being a young player, it takes time to learn, and it takes learning under, veteran players, which again, we go back to this Knox conversation of, if you're going to lose, give him experience, let him play. He's not going to get better if he's playing and making the same mistakes, because he hasn't learned from anybody that he's played with. So, and again, they don't have to make a financial commitment to him yet. So I think they can nurture him a little bit more this year, and if it means spending some time on the bench, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly been left for debate on the best way to approach this Knox situation. I just think, listen, it's just human nature from the fan base, tired of seeing these guys rack up losing, and the whole thought process is why lose with these veteran players that have no future here. On the flip side, I could understand, getting these guys some more minutes. Obviously, Portis is a guy I would like to trade. If you can trade a Ellington, I would like to trade him as well. I'm not so sure what the market commands for those type of guys compared to, say, a Morris, but it's just wishful thinking at this point.
And I know they'll do their homework and explore and make calls and have the conversations around the league to see what the value is. And if there's a great opportunity, then they'll take advantage.
Facts, man. Well, yeah. Well, great job on the film. Definitely looking forward to more of it, man. Appreciate that, Tommy D. Let's take a couple more calls. Let's go to Quentin from Long Island. Wants to check in. Quentin, how you doing, man?
Right, Alex. And the White House had really sort of
Hello?
painted themselves.
Doing good, fellas.
Good, man.
I got bad news for Knicks fans. The season is over.
That we knew. I mean, I don't think you're
done.
Really lighting the box score up there with that one, Quentin. But come on.
I think we should go after Dennis Schroeder. He's on a 3-year contract. He's a guard that can break down the defense. He's not the best defender, but we haven't had a guard like that, and he's more consistent. And I think he would be an easier trade than anything. I think it's time for us to start using our draft picks as far as trade baits and things of that. And for people that think Morris is going to stay or re-sign with the Knicks, it's out of their minds. He wanted to go to the Clippers at first, but his agent messed that up. Then he went to go to
that's not what happened.
San Antonio, established with Morris.
Yeah. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, finish your point.
I thought that's what happened. He was going to sign with the Clippers, but his agent told him that he could get a better deal somewhere else, and it wasn't what it was. But I just don't think Morris is going to stay, because why would he want to stay with the Knicks that are not going anywhere? And he's on a 1-year contract. I think at the trade deadline, there's going to be those teams that have the chance to win a championship, and they need that extra piece.
Well,
and they'll be able to give up, one of those, one of those late first-round draft picks or something like that. And especially depending on what happens with Andre Iguodala, if he signs with the Clippers, that's what speculations are. The Lakers are almost obligated to try to match that for somebody to come off the bench and help out. But
all right, appreciate the call, man. Appreciate the call. I mean,
lot to unpack.
Lot to unpack on the Schroeder thing. I say definitely not. Definitely not high on just going after Schroeder, just because. Again, I need a start over. I'm in the draft, Tommy. I'm in the draft. I'm not going after Schroeder. None of these. No more reclamation projects. I want to start fresh. Give me a kid with a ridiculous pedigree. Looks like we'll be in the top 5, top 6, likely. So I'm going in the draft to go get that point guard, man.
And I'm not inclined to. There was a time where I'd be okay with adding first-round picks. Not at this point whatsoever. No. And there's zero reason to take any risks whatsoever. So you want to just continue to collect those.
Continue to collect and pick. We need talent, right? Talent. Continue to use the draft picks and draft some kids in here that can help this team that you can build going forward. I'm not, no need to start packaging up picks and start making hasty trades just for the sake of upgrades. I don't think that's smart.
And Schrader is a guy who's he's a good player. He's been in the league for a while. He has a big contract and but just hasn't taken that next step, right? Like
never did.
Sort of in that, and a guy who I loved as much as anybody who hasn't done that either is Reggie Jackson. Very similar.
Same. Yep.
Guys that are just like, and it's just like in the NFL. You gotta, you don't want that 15 to 20 or 22 quarterback.
Right.
You want a top 15 or ideally a top 5 quarterback. And there's no reason to pay a 15 to 30 or 25 point guard if you don't have to.
Agreed. Closer of the night, we're gonna go to Matt from Sarasota checking in. Matt, how you doing tonight, man?
Oh man, guys, I'll tell you what the depressing game. We played well for most of this game, just like against Philadelphia, games we could have had. I want to touch on the coaching front. I'm with y'all that I don't want Mark Jackson. I changed my mind. I pulled it back.
My
guy is still banged up. Yeah, I looked at that whole Golden State situation, and imparting your religious beliefs in the locker rooms is bad karma. You just don't do it. You don't do that to players. I like the development aspects of him. I like the fact that he's a New Yorker. But honestly, I think Van Gundy's a better coach. And I don't think there's any disputing that. He's a Pat Riley disciple. I said that last time. Alternate, you got guys in the Knicks front office that were players that probably deserve a shot. I mean, you got a guy like Larry Johnson up there. You got John Starks in a community development role. I think players would respond to John Starks.
Yeah. I mean, not
like
for nothing.
that.
I don't know Larry Johnson's preference, but I know for a fact John Starks told me straight up he doesn't want to coach anything. Like emphatic no, Tommy D. We were like, what do you think about coaching? He was like, hell no.
That is true.
Starks does not want to be anywhere near this team in that regard.
Maybe not. But I think Van Gundy's our answer. And if there's any way we could convince him to throw a little extra money in the pot for him, that would be my choice, hands down. I had read an article today that says Masai Ujiri to end up with the Knicks up top in the front office.
Yeah.
I think that would be a dream scenario. I mean, that guy's the architect of that Toronto team to put it together.
Yeah. Hey, that'd be a beautiful thing, man. Appreciate the call, man. I mean, I think the Ujiri article, Tommy, is more just timing in terms of when we just played the Raptors and then pulling some grass here. Isola had kind of started that earlier.
Knicks for clicks.
Yeah. I felt like that was just kind of just
or
to generate some
in the
content.
Athletics case, Knicks for subscriptions.
Yeah, right.
Which when they hired Frank, they didn't do themselves really any favor. Good thing Mike V is doing a really good job there. Yeah. Frank is not a fan favorite of the fans whatsoever. For me, let's look at it this way, right? If something, and again, I don't like doing this because these are, men with families and it's the holidays, and I don't like talking about people losing jobs. It makes me uncomfortable, just because it's, that these are real people. If it does happen, you're not going to go on a coaching search throughout the season, during the season, right? You're not going to go out and say, oh, these are the top, let's go interview Dave Yeager. Let's go interview Mark Jackson. Let's go interview X, Y, and Z. I don't foresee them bringing in Herb Williams, although they have done, right?
No way.
That was, and I love Herb. I saw Herb over the summer. He looks great. He's doing great. He's a terrific guy.
Nice.
And a Knicks fan favorite until he became the interim head coach, which I always thought was like, why are you giving this guy a hard time? He's doing his job. But I like Caleb Canales. The idea of maybe putting him in an interim role, I say I like only because that you're going to have to pick from the current assistants if something were to happen, because that's generally how it works. Keith Smart is also there, although he and Coach Fizdale are very close. Again, I don't like talking about these scenarios, but whatever happens, if it happens this year, it's going to start internally, and I think fans need to get behind, that person and that opportunity, and then take it from there.
Well said, man. Well said. I want to go one more caller before we wrap up. This guy was waiting for a second here. Toussaint from Pennsylvania, Lancaster. What's going on, man?
Man, what's going on, my people?
How you doing, bro?
What's up?
Man, I'm good.
Happy
I just had a a quick question and a comment. My first question is, with Kevin Knox, what are we hoping he develops into? Like a player comparison or best case scenario type of thing. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, he's going to be a knockdown shooter, man. A knockdown shooter, somebody that you can stretch the floor with, catch and shoot, somebody that's going to use his athleticism to get it to the rim. We saw Knox get aggressive with it tonight. Like a poor man's Paul George, and a real poor man's, like a Dollar Tree version of Paul George. I don't know if Knox is going to be even close to all-star level, but if he can give you 14, 12 to 14 a night, I think he could be an asset for this team, man. Tommy, what do you think?
That's the Brandon Ingram to Kevin Durant comparison. The Knox to George. Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, he's
poor man, George. Not an identical. Yeah.
I got you.
You're talking about a killer instinct is on complete polar opposites when it comes to those two. So I say real poor man's Paul George.
I would like to see Knox develop into a player who maybe doesn't even have a comparison. I like a guy who can play. You can give him the ball and run pick and roll, and he can shoot threes, and he can come off screens and be a catch and shoot guy. You want him to have a little bit more, defensive awareness and maybe a little more toughness on the defensive end. But in terms of ceiling, it's hard to put a finger on. The guy's, and not that it matters. He scored 3,000 points in high school. He was a walking bucket for the most part at Kentucky in his 1 year. He's, to me, a transition player that once he gets out and does, has the ball in transition, he scores like a player that I really haven't seen before. He's that. I mean, he's really good in transition when he's given and in that opportunity. Generally, it's him getting a rebound and then pushing it up the floor.
Right.
But it's a great question. I mean, I don't have an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd like him to be Paul George, a poor man's Paul George as well. Bigger version, right? Because he's closer to 6'10". But I just think he's got a lot of his shooting stroke is very fluid. He's got an NBA skill, and then you just got to develop the rest. I feel.
Got to develop the rest, and you got to hope the motor question dies down in the future, man. You got to hope that it doesn't become a constant question of him, maintaining that level of aggressiveness that he's going to need to be an impact on his team. So we'll see. We'll see if Fizz can get Kev right as this team goes to 4-16 on the season. Knicks coming into Milwaukee tomorrow night, back-to-back. Second half of a back-to-back. We'll have JL's back with us. Tommy D, thanks for coming on, man. I'm going to throw it over to your screen, close out, and let the people know where they can find you, man.
CP, as always, you're the best. Thank you for allowing me the time to do this the X's and O's stuff. It's a lot of fun. And it's always great to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving again to everyone. You can find me at patreon.com/Tommy D and on Twitter at ThomasCDE. I'll drop that in the YouTube chat under the guy who just called me D's nuts. And I've been called worse, RJT. I've been called a lot worse, man. It's all good. You can call me whatever you want as long as you call me. That's the old saying. But always a pleasure, CP, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And once again, thanks for coming through. And thanks for everybody for watching, man. Another tough loss at MSG. Knicks go down to the Celtics 113-104. Another crunch time defeat. What do we do? What do we need to do to get a W? Leave me a comment in the video below. Remember, this show is also available in audio podcast format. Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher. Hit those links in the chat. Hit those links in the video description. And check it out on your favorite audio podcast. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. Very important to do so to support us. Also, a way to support us, hit that thumbs up before you leave. Everybody hit that thumbs up button. Hit that like button for us. Subscribe to the channel. And share these videos. Share this on Facebook right now. Share it on Twitter right now. If you do it on Twitter with the hashtag PostGameNYK, we'll put you in our Twitter DM group. We'll also put you in our Discord group as well. Just another group chat that keeps the conversation going for those of you that are interested. And it's a good time, man. So once again, I want to appreciate all the mods for coming through, helping out. Dave, TM, Rome, Keith Sinclair, Above the Rim. Thanks to everybody who came through. Apple Fanboy, Jack Peters. The Advocates, #new. Welcome to the program, The Advocates. KR says the Tankathon continues. Too early for that one, man, but I hear you. It's getting ugly out there. Nick Flair, appreciate it. The Shells, appreciate it. Steve Stark, the Realtor, always appreciate it, man. Valentine Outlaw, K-Pat. Thank you. Hit that thumbs up one more time, and we'll see you Monday night, post-game live. #1 show for the fans, by the fans. Anthony Parasol, salute. And we'll see you guys Monday night, man. Peace.